Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Luke Martin. I am the Floyd County Republican Party chairman. And during the November 3rd election and the recount and the audit that followed the election, I served as a partisan observer. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before this committee, and I'm happy to testify because here in Floyd County, we experienced some real tangible issues that resulted in about 3,000 ballots that were not counted on election night, and they weren't discovered until much later. So I hope to bring that perspective to you, that there really is a problem out there that resulted in lawfully cast ballots not being counted. But first, just on election night, or even prior, our Board of Elections, our elections office, failed to notify both parties about when they were going to begin counting the absentee ballots. So they were counted without any kind of partisan or public observation. And that's not for our lack of trying either. Me and representatives of the Democratic Party appeared at the election board meetings. We were told that they'll get the dates to us. That just never happened. So that's how we started out, not being able to observe absentee ballots, period. On election night, we tried to enter into the county administration building where the elections office is and where they were counting the ballots, and the doors were locked. I don't think that they locked the doors on purpose or out of malice at all. I just think that they didn't understand their responsibilities to the public and to the parties to allow the observation. We were eventually able to get in, and we had observers in the administration building. But again, that's just kind of building on to some of the failures with our office. They ran into some significant problems on election night. Basically, the people who were actually counting the ballots, the chief clerk and the computer tech, the Dominion tech, whenever we'd have a write-in ballot and it would go to the machine, it would kick out the whole ballot basically, and it was supposed to count everything but the write-in race and leave that write-in for adjudication if necessary, but instead they didn't know how basically to sort it. And it was an ability to sort it. Other counties, had write-ins as well, but basically our people were untrained and didn't understand how to use the system, and in some cases their own system, because the Dominion Tech was there. So on election night, we only had about 17% of our ballots reporting, and I think we had about 40,000 votes cast. So only about 17% on election night, and that's unfortunately not unusual for us in Floyd County. We're typically one of the last in the state. So there was that issue, but eventually the vote totals were certified, and the risk limiting audit was ordered, and that happened. The elections office was very good about allowing the partisan observation for the hand count, the audit. So I'll give them credit for that. And during certification of those results, or review of those results, they found 2,700 roughly ballots that weren't counted. So representatives from the Republican Party, the public, the Democratic Party, we all rushed to the elections office to see what was going on. And so basically what we figured out our actual problem was why these ballots weren't counted. It came from an early voting precinct, one of our 2 early voting precincts that were open at the time. And the scanner, you cast your vote, the printer right by the box prints out your vote, you take it to the scanner, and you scan it through. Well, that scanner apparently wasn't working. The elections office knew it wasn't working, so that data was not getting transferred to the memory card. So what they did was they allowed that scanner, that box, to get full, and then they removed those ballots, approximately 5,000 of them, and then we're going to put them through scanner number 2. And they did that. They scanned those ballots. We still don't know if someone just forgot to scan half of them, a human error, or if they were scanned and then somehow not counted in the system. We're really not sure. We weren't able to figure that out. But basically, yeah, they weren't counted. The risk limiting audit, the hand count, discovered that. So what we did was the Secretary of State's office allowed us to recertify those totals with the appropriate amount. So we did that. Thankfully, those were caught. But we ended up with another problem during this recount. Just a few weeks ago, we discovered that in the risk limiting audit, they counted 300 ballots twice. And so the certified totals we got wrong twice, both times we certified it. So basically what happened was we had 2 early voting precincts. As I said before, there was a box of those paper ballots they counted them twice, one for each early voting precinct. So our hand count revealed 2,700 uncounted ballots, but then the certified total was 3,060 higher than the machine certified totals from election day. So we messed that up twice in Floyd County, and that's, and I believe, human error. I think it was a lack of training and education from our elections office that led to those errors, and that's really why I wanted to testify today, because I understand the absentee ballot process. I understand how the signatures are verified, and I understand why the Secretary of State is not calling for a signature audit. Basically, our law doesn't provide any instructions on who pays for it, how to do it, what happens if a certain percentage of signatures are rejected in the signature audit. So what I saw on election night, the audit, the hand count, and in my dealings with the elections office was that human error can lead to some serious problems. It led to roughly 3,000 uncounted ballots. And unfortunately, those same people who did that are the ones responsible for the final tabulation of the signatures. When the absentee ballots come in, they're the ones verifying it. I think the public and the parties just need an opportunity to be able to observe that. And I would ask this committee to recommend some changes to our laws in that respect. I think we need to have the ability to conduct a signature audit. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I have a couple of questions if you are willing to take Representative Oliver. You had a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Am I remembering correctly that the election director of Floyd County was fired after this election of November 3rd? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Is that evidence that the system worked, that your election board took action, or do you oppose him being fired?
I think that was a step in the right direction. He basically was new in the office. He had only been around for this election cycle. Our problems lasted before him, and since he's been gone, we counted the 300 votes twice. So we still continue to have problems, but I am grateful that the board took that step, and I think it was a step in the right direction.
You supported the step and they took responsible action in your view?
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Lumsden had a question. Do you still have a question, Representative Lumsden?
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. No, I was just going to ask Mr. Martin if the things that he observed relative to the things going on in Floyd County had more to do with the lack of training or lack of process, more so than just and human error, more than the system itself. Is that my understanding of what you've told us here today?
Yes, sir. I think the problems that I saw, even starting from the failure to notify the public and the parties about when they were counting absentee ballots, that was out of a lack of training and education on behalf of the elections office. They didn't know how important that was, and that just wasn't on their list of priorities. I think on election night, when they were trying to sort out the write-in issue in the computers, it was because they didn't know the settings basically to check. So they weren't trained on that. I know for a fact, because I was there, they tried to get in touch with the Secretary of State's office that night. I was there when they were trying to call them. They didn't receive any help in troubleshooting that issue on election night, so it wasn't resolved until later. But yes, sir, I'm Representative Lumsden. I believe that our issues in Floyd County are the result of a lack of training and education in our elections office.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Appreciate you being with us today. Going to move on to Mrs. Giddens out of Ware County, another poll watcher. Ms. Giddens, are you with